welcome and everything. Let me know when to. Anyway.
Is preparing to live stream. Everyone should be seeing this meeting is being live streamed.
Great, we're live, everybody. My name is Jason Statz, Chair for the West Salem Redevelopment Advisory Board. Good morning, happy November. We've got an agenda that we need to approve. Do I have a motion on the floor? Or do we do roll call first?
Yeah, I'll do the roll call. Jason Statz.
All right. Here.
John Hannum.
Present.
Tom Crozier. He's here. Jeremy McKay. Not yet arrived. Ashley Morey. Not yet here. Samantha Ross.
Here.
Mark Smith. Not present. Have a quorum.
Great. Are we all done with that part?
Yeah, all done.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. The meeting's called to order, and we need to approve the agenda for today.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, great. Agenda passes. Approval of and then we need to approve the October 2nd, 2023 minutes.
Motion to approve previous meeting minutes.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Samantha Ross seconds.
Great. Any discussion? Anybody abstaining? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Agenda approves. Welcome, Mark. We can update the roll call to show that Jeremy McKay and Mark Smith have arrived.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome, gentlemen. Do we have any public comment this morning, Tori?
I have not received public comment outside of just in general, but not on topics, not on the agenda. No.
And it doesn't look like we've got any action items. So it looks like we can move right into our discussion items. Today, we'll be discussing ethics and public meetings. Tori and Brian, you've got the floor.
I just want to thank Brian with the legal department. As you know, for those members that have been coming, it's pretty much on an annual basis, a reminder of ethics and public meetings law. And I feel it's good timing because the group with the new chair and everything revisited the renewal plan, the bylaws. And so it's a good segue into your role, how you're appointed, and the importance of it and how you serve the broader public. So things to consider as you do that. So appreciate Brian taking the time. We typically would do this in December. It's one of those leading into the holiday season where meetings a little light, but for budgeting purposes, all those meetings have moved up. So next month we'll start high-level budget discussions. And so that necessitated Brian's move to November. So thank you again, Brian, for joining us today.
All right. Well, I'll see if I can't share my screen. I've got a slideshow that I'm going to do. It takes 15-20 minutes to go through. If you have questions or different scenarios, feel free to jump in there and we can discuss those. Let me see if I can get this to work. And can you see it? We're good on sharing screen. All right. Public meetings, public records, and ethical considerations. All right. How do I go to the next slide? There we go. In Oregon, like, the vast majority of all the states, we have public meetings for our public officials. The purpose of public meetings is to allow members of the public to view and participate in the decision-making process for a governing body. Those decisions that affect the public have to be done in a public setting with notice and their opportunity for the public to participate. The sunshine laws, essentially. We don't do decision-making behind closed doors. We do them with open doors. Decisions that affect the public have to be made and discussed in a forum that's open to the public and available for their participation. They have to be given notice of when the meeting is, and then they have to have an opportunity to participate. In the last few years, we've gone from, in-person meetings to online meetings, but then there's also this hybrid. So, you've got in-person, online, and streaming, but we have an opportunity for the public to listen and participate in our decision-making process. Who must, obey these laws? Well, these public meeting laws apply to all meetings of a governing body, which is like the city, the county, the state is a governing body, but the public body is the state, the city, the county. The governing body is like council, or, for example, the West Salem Redevelopment Advisory Board. Whenever we deliberate or make a recommendation for this board to council, we have to do that in a public meeting. What's a meeting? Well, this particular activity is a meeting, but there's certain scenarios that aren't necessarily public meetings, even though all of you could be in the same place. If you have a quorum, which we needed 4 of our members, but if we went and did a tour of a particular piece of property that this board was considering making a recommendation to council about, would that tour of that property, if 4 or 5 of you all went to that piece of property, would that be a public meeting? Not necessarily. If you're just viewing it, not discussing, and certainly not making any decisions, then it would just be an on-site inspection. Members of a board can end up at a particular conference together where there's 4 or 5 of you in the same room. Technically would be a quorum of the public or the governing body. However, unless you discuss information about the board or an activity, if you're just in a social setting, that wouldn't be considered a public meeting. However, if you engaged in activities at that, conference about, future decisions about the board, or you're discussing topics that are coming before the board, and then you could be in violation of a public meeting law because you failed to provide notice and an opportunity for the public to participate. Biggest pitfalls for public meetings, and it's happened here in the usual examples, Lane County, and their public officials. And congratulations, you're all public officials now, regardless of whether you've been paid or not. You've taken the opportunity to become a public official, which does put some sideboards on activities that you can do. Biggest pitfalls for public meetings are serial meetings. For example, if one board member sent an email to a second board member saying, hey, what do you think about maybe recommending this to the council to purchase, or something along those lines? And then it gets forwarded to the next board member, and then the next and the next. So you've engaged in a public meeting serially. So you've forwarded those emails. You've taken an opportunity to discuss, board activities, but not in a public fashion. So be careful with your emails, telephone calls, and meetings, because you can do a serial meeting by stepping into somebody's office, discussing, something before the board, and then move from office to office. Lane County got in trouble doing that because they were doing these serial meetings. They were kind of taking the temperature of each of the board members to see how they were going to vote. Being a public official in that scenario, they have personal responsibility. As a public official, you have personal responsibility. They were found to have violated the public meetings laws, and each of the individual commission members had $20,000 worth of personal liability, and they had to pay for their own lawyer. So it's a very serious matter. You don't want to, get afoul of the public meetings law. So it's always best to, think before you hit that forward button, or you hit reply all. That's another danger. You inadvertently reply all. Yes, I'd love to vote for this, and you hit reply all. If you're emailing about, with Tori or each other about, are you available on December 4th or for 5 p.m. administrative matters or something different, you guys can communicate about those things. Or are you available? Those aren't going to set you aside. But if you're discussing board business in an email or individually from office to office, that's when you can run afoul. In the case of Lane County, they really tried to usurp the public meetings laws and do things behind closed doors. After they were found to have violated the public meetings laws, they also started to reply all and got caught in a second time trying to figure out how to get out of this public meetings violation. So it's best to ensure that all your discussions, all of your communications are done in a regularly scheduled, noticed public meeting. You won't have any problems with that. Lane County went beyond just, hey, are you available on December 4th? They replied all, discussed business before the board via email, and again, were found to be personally liable. Remember, and here's where I know it's blurred, but this thing right here, your cell phone, your email, texts. As a public official, anything that you communicate with a member of the public or another board member about board business is a public record. Whether you send it on your personal email, your personal text, any of those are discoverable emails. You don't want to get in a situation where, not a prosecutor, but a public, a lawyer of some sort is having to review your phone to determine whether you have public records on your phone. If you are sending emails to Tori, text to Tori or to each other, if you don't have a dedicated City of Salem email, you may want to consider setting up, a separate email for yourself so you can track those should there be a public records request for example, all Jason's emails to the board. It's a valid public records request, but we want to ensure that we're not infringing upon, somebody's, personal life. So be careful with your emails and your texts because they are all discoverable. Well, what's a public record? Well, any information, public records, any information that's prepared, owned, or used by in this example, a board member, relates to an activity, transaction, or function of the agency and is necessary to satisfy the fiscal, legal, administrative. We have public records retention laws. We have public records disclosure laws that we have to follow. So be cognizant when you're writing that email or writing that text, what you want to say isn't necessarily what you are going to say. So be careful in how you word your text. As much as you want to lay into somebody, realize that can eventually end up on the front page. So be cognizant of all your public official communications, that each and every one of them can be discoverable. Well, what's a public official? Congratulations. There's three things you have to consider as a public official. You've got conflict of interest issues that are now arise as a result of being a public official. You've got gift issues, and then use/misuse of your office or something that you have to be considered. So we've got these ethic laws that are both in our Salem Revised Code and in state law. There's two sets of ethics rules you have to follow. State laws here, but ours are The cities are more restrictive. So if you follow the cities, you'll also be following state law. Who's it apply? Well, you're a public official, but you have relatives that are also under these public ethics laws. There's things that they can and can't do because they're related to a public official. Gifts an issue. You can't, usurp the public ethics laws by having your spouse or your child, receive a $20,000. Thanks. Here's some free tickets. Thanks for, considering this particular piece of property. And if you have a business, you also have to take that into consideration, that your business cannot receive, financial gain as a result of being a public official. Elected officials, our council, they're elected, they are public officials. Appointed officials like you all, employees, agents, you don't have to receive money to be a public official. What's a business? Well, I know I've got a clothing manufacturer. I make homemade T-shirts or something along those lines. That's a private business, can be owned by a public official. You could be self-employed. If you're a public official on a 501c3, unless you are receiving financial remuneration, then you're not going to have an issue if you're a public official on the board of a 501c3. It's a little different than if you're receiving direct financial payments from your own business or your own employment. Here, when it comes to conducting business as a public official, some of the things that you have to be cognizant of are the conflict of interest and actual conflict of interest, the appearance rule, special favors, and then non-disclosure of information that you may receive as a public official, regarding your board business. What's an actual conflict of interest? Well, if, for example, I had a piece of property in West Salem that I owned that the city was interested in, and the West Salem Redevelopment Advisory Board was maybe going to make a recommendation to the council that maybe this would be great for, low-income housing or new commercial or something along those lines. If I was the owner of that property, I'd have an actual conflict of interest. If I was a member of the board and the board was considering purchasing this property, I'd have to, folks, I've got a conflict of interest. I am the owner of this property. I can't participate or act as a board member, so I'm going to, sit this one out. It's direct. You can see it. It's pretty obvious. It's an actual conflict of interest, because I would receive a direct pecuniary benefit if the board votes to recommend to council that we purchase this property. Well, the potential conflict of interest, is a little grayer. It's not quite as black and white as an actual conflict of interest where you're going to receive direct payment. You could receive a pecuniary benefit. If I was the property owner next door, you may want to disclose, well, the property values may go up. I may receive a benefit, because this sector of, West Salem land is now going up in value, that we're putting this giant commercial, building, or recommending a giant commercial building right next door. You'd want to disclose that, but doesn't necessarily mean you can't participate. That, the direct action won't have any, financial gain for you or your family. However, you want to disclose that, because we want to be as open to the public as possible. Well, what happens if you do have a conflict of interest? If it's actual, you disclose it. Hey, I'm the owner of this property. I'm going to abstain. You don't participate. Potential, you disclose it. Depending on where you are in that scale, you may say, well, I disclose it to everybody. The members of the public are aware of, this potential conflict of interest. And you may or may not be able to vote on it depending on the circumstances. With being a public official, and ethics are an individual, it's an individual decision. As assistant city attorney, I can't say, hey, there's a conflict of interest, you must, not participate. It's the public officials, they have to make their own decisions. They can, get information from other folks, but the actual abstention and everything is an individual public official decision. Oops. The appearance of impropriety. So we've got an appearance rule. How's it look? Public officials are bound to observe in their official acts the highest standards of morality to discharge faithfully the duties of their office, regardless of personal consideration. If it doesn't look right, you can kind of see those, maybe you shouldn't participate in this, or, as a, West Rab official, I'm taking a position. We don't want to have situations where it looks like, those gray areas are being pushed. You have to be fair and impartial. You can't use city-owned property for your own personal use. I know you guys don't have cars or things along those lines, but, computers, phones, I mean, there's, some nominal if you check the weather and things like that, but you can't, take city-owned property and use it for your business, or to borrow a chainsaw to, work on your own house. And then you can't grant special privileges as a public official unless it's available for everyone. You can't say, well, you can attend this and you can attend that. Generally, it doesn't happen. You have to be careful not to abuse the power of your position. Sometimes advisory boards and council receive information that would be, confidential and not yet ready to be released to the public. If we're, for example, if we're looking, the city's looking at purchasing real estate, we can keep that information confidential so we can go through the negotiation and purchase process. So we couldn't say, hey, I know Bob over there owns that land. I'm going to let him know that the city's looking at, buying it. Maybe he jacks up his price. That would be, an improper use of your office, and you couldn't disclose confidential city information unless it's required under the law. Consequences for, violations of, ethics laws. You could be a civil penalty like they did in Lane County, where they did the serial public meeting. They actually had to pay $20,000 fine in addition to their own attorney's fees. You could lose your office. And then our charter allows us to take whatever action necessary to ensure that our public officials are, engaging in ethical behavior. Where to look for your ethics rules. Chapter 62 of the Salem Charter is where you need to begin to look at those. Applies to elected and appointed. If you receive a gift, if you attend a conference and someone gives you free tickets to the Lakers or something along those lines. Generally, my advice is to avoid any of that, because then you don't have any appearance of impropriety. If you get a bag, a sticker, a pen or something along those lines, those are nominal and they're usually available for everybody. If you receive a gift that from somebody and that individual is, appearing before the board for board activity, that may be a situation. Hey, this individual has given me a gift before, I don't want any appearance of impropriety. I'm going to sit this particular one out so that we don't have any, issues. So in those rare circumstances, it's best to say, hey, there may be an appearance of impropriety here. We just want to avoid anything looking like the city is, and city's public officials are not being fair to everybody. Compliance with these ethics laws are for the public official. No one is going to tell them they're being ethical or unethical until the situation arises where you've got a violation. You have to comply with both the state and the city ethics laws. But like I said, the cities are more stringent than the states. So if you follow the cities, you won't have any issues following the state laws. What's our role? Our client is the city, the agency. When it comes to individual public officials, we don't represent the individual officials. We don't represent the individual councilor members. We represent the city as a whole. Even in the Lane County case, they went to their city attorney at the time and said, hey, are these communications, these serial communications, are they violations of the ethics laws? And the city attorney wrote a memo saying, no, So the counselors have relied on the city attorney's legal advice, but it's not a defense. We can guide you, but the ultimate decision and responsibilities of the public officials. We can guide you, we can point you in directions, we can give you the information, but the ultimate decision is the public officials. Where do you go? Well, Oregon Government Ethics Commission is a good place if you end up in this weird situation where you're not sure whether you've got an actual or potential conflict of interest and you just need some advice to talk it out. They can give you this commission can give you, they can talk with you, can give you informal advice. Won't protect you, if you call up and say, yeah, and they're like, yeah, that's fine. Still no protection. If they give you an advisory opinion, still no exemption from liability. You have to get an official commission opinion, which honestly could take months and months and months. So those, rarely happen, but they can be issued if we have this really unique situation. We also have a hearings officer with the city of Salem. They actually will investigate ethical complaints, but they can also render advisory opinions or interpretations. So we have someone in-house with the city of Salem. Is a lawyer on contract who is, separated from us so they can give us, give public officials, independent advice. If you need that advice or have a weird situation, contact our city attorney, Dan Atchison, and he can put you in contact or give you, some preliminary advice and then put you in contact with the hearings officer should you have, further questions or need further information. Oop. How do I get out of this? And stop sharing. So with that, congratulations, you're public officials. You have to pay attention to who's giving you what and when you're talking outside of a open public meeting. With that, do you guys have any questions?
I think for a lot of us, this is review, Brian.
Mhm.
And I think, has everybody gone through this presentation before here? Jeremy, is this your first one? I don't remember.
No, this is my third.
Oh, third.
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, I'll review. So, at my gallery's upcoming November 17th open house, when we all gather there to have a glass of cheer, we're not going to talk about, any issues related to urban renewal development as it pertains to this board. So.
Right. So, I mean, those are the things if you're cognizant. Yes, ma'am.
Can we talk about Tori?
You can talk about Tori.
I like that. Thank you, Brian, so much for the information. The presentation is always well done and very accurate. So,
thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your meeting, and thank you, Tori.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
All right. Up next, public art in the riverfront downtown urban renewal area. We've got Tori and Shelley marked for 20 minutes for this topic. So the floor is yours.
I'll go first and welcome you, Shelley. Shelley works with me in urban development, and she manages projects downtown. And so the conversations come up in previous meetings about having some of these like public art and other projects. We're doing, obviously, under construction right now is 2nd Street, and that's bringing with it redevelopment of that corridor. Some of the old Oregon fruit buildings have changed considerably. Rain Suites now getting demolished. I don't know if any of you have seen that. So that's a pretty big outcome as a result of renewal funding, redevelopment, and advisory recommendations from this group. So the discussion has shifted to, what else can we do? It's not such a big, like a street type project. And so this is downtown's creative in what they do. The downtown urban renewal area is older than the West Salem one. They've addressed a lot of different things in historic downtown and in the public right of way, and really creatively approached the use of urban renewal to enhance various parts of that area. So just want to take an opportunity to have this idea that has been floated for these, there are historic wraps around some utilities if you've seen them downtown, but what the downtown group is doing now, I'll let Shelley share that, but it was just something that potentially could be applied in West Salem. I'll just share really quickly as an example. So this is the West Salem Park, and you can see these boxes. They're really everywhere. Public right of way. You'll have utilities if they're underground. They have different type of boxes as a result of that undergrounding, because they have to come into a junction of some sort, be able to access it. But it leaves these different utility boxes throughout. So you have them at Edgewater, in this case, the West Salem Park, and this isn't the only part of it. So they're all clustered in one area, but they have more as you go through the park. So that's just an example of what could be addressed potentially with what Shelley's going to speak to. So thank you again, Shelley, for taking the time. And also I had issues making the meeting go live. So thank you for doing that part for me too. And welcome.
No problem. Good morning, everybody. I was telling Jason, I'm the Tory of the West Salem. So we do this together. It's called teamwork. So good morning to everybody. I think I may have met everyone back in, was it April, Tory, or earlier in the year when I talked about some updates that were happening in downtown Salem as a whole. And this is a continuation of that. We started our streetscape project several years ago, and we have several years to go yet. However, we wanted to come up with some small ways to not only increase the beautification, but also help us solve some of our problems as it relates to graffiti. As you can see from the boxes that Tori showed you, those are just magnets for individuals with spray paint and or other ways that they like to use to enhance it in their own artistic way. And so we thought, well, let's look at some of the other communities. So it's nothing unique. I think you've all probably seen these unique boxes or artistic wrap boxes as you've done some of your travels. And we just wanted to bring some down here to help us achieve some of the beautification goals that we have in the city. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what the process was, so you can see that it really wasn't onerous. I want you always to know that it is our goal to try and get those projects completed as quickly as possible, but there are some processes that we have to go through. And I will say, as a city employee, that our team, and I mean Public Works Department, the Salem Public Arts Commission staffer, we all just saw the benefit of this. And so this project is going to go along a little quicker than some of the ones that Tori was talking about as far as the redevelopment of 2nd Street there. We met with SPAC to spell out what our goal was and what we were trying to accomplish. They were on board. We chose the route of using existing art that the city already owns and is part of the Salem Public Art Commission portfolio collection. And it was just going to make it easier because they had already approved the art. We have art in the Civic Center, we have art in the library, and some in the Convention Center. And of course, we have lots of art that is also stored properly, and then that art moves from place to place. So we wanted to use something that had already been approved, but also to give those artists a more visible space versus just being in an inside location. So we spoke with Public Works because our Public Works Department is property of the city, but they are responsible for the utility boxes in our downtown core. you may have some that may not be owned by the city itself, and we'll have to work that out with those various entities, but we were fortunate that our Public Works Department owned all of the utility boxes downtown. We then selected 22 boxes in our corridor. They're mostly on the corners because we want high visibility. Once again, we also looked at where all the graffiti was kind of being placed, and we wanted those to be targeted first so that we can remove that impact. We found that if there's something already there and the graffiti's not going to be legible, then what's the purpose of adding your special characters onto it? We then did quite a lot of research with other communities to kind of see what installation processes they use, as well as their maintenance and upkeep. What did it require? Because as you know, URA funds can be used to do the wraps, but we do not have the money to maintain the wraps. And so we were very pleased to find that most of the wrap companies, in regards to their installation, there's a 5 to 7 year not total guarantee, but a warranty of sorts that they will be easily wiped off should someone use it for a surface for graffiti, and or if we were to need to start to peel and things of that nature. So we were very pleased to hear of the longevity of the wraps, as well as the easy application. We were very fortunate that we had several companies here, including one in West Salem that we sent out the procurement to for doing the wraps. And we received our bids about 3.5 weeks ago, and we were able to get 22 boxes, 88 panels, because we want all 4 sides to be covered, for $14,000. And that includes the art being put onto their wrap material, them coming out, measuring it themselves, because we don't measure because we don't want to get them wrong, as well as installing the wraps and the warranty. So we were very pleased with that. We are looking to put a QR code on our wraps, so that if someone should want to know more about the artist and or where it's located in the collection, they can actually go see where it's located, as well as give the artists the recognition that they have earned as part of their works that the city has purchased. I wanted to take a moment to share with you a couple of the options that we are looking at that's in the collection. Tori, can you see that?
Yes, it's showing.
This will be it's from the Salem Public Art Collection, and we're really pleased with this. You see the vibrant colors, you see the historic nature to it. We will have this wrap as an entrance into the Riverfront Park, because we thought it would go with what's in the carousel, and also help make sure that those who travel a lot into the park see the beauty of when families were living here from native communities. So this is the type of art that's in the collection, and we just picked the ones that we thought would enhance again and improve in downtown Salem as part of our goal. So Tori, I think that's pretty much A to Z how we came about this. I do have a couple of other downtown updates that if you would like for me to share. If there are any questions about the art, I'm very happy to answer those as well.
I think we're always good to hear about other projects, but does the group have art related or art wrap questions for Shelley?
I have one question. I think that's awesome. Did you say there was one box that was identified in West Salem?
Oh, not yet. Oh, that was a provider, I think, right, Shelley? That was one of the
Correct.
bid
One
options.
of the contractors, one of the potential vendors to bid is located in West Salem.
Gotcha. Okay, I misunderstood. Thank you.
Well, we do have a box, if you're familiar with, of course you're familiar with it, but where the Rite Aid Family Dollar, we will have that box and it'll have more of an agricultural theme because we felt as you were going into West Salem, you were going to be going out into the vineyards and out that way. So we kind of thought through how this could be a place maker as well as a wayfinder. Because if you noticed on the photo that Tori showed, you have already a wayfinder there. So this was just going to add to it. So that was some of the thought process as well. So we knew people would be going into at two different entrances into the Riverfront Park. And we know that's a lot of kids. And so we wanted to have more fun and active things there. And in front of the Coves building, I think we have a beautiful picture of flowers, something that said home to it because of the housing that's there. So we thought through, we have a corridor that will have birds, and that kind of went along with, if you're familiar with the mural, that's on the Chemeketa Parkade stack in the back. There are birds and woodpeckers on there, and so that's going to be kind of like our bird theme on the utility boxes. So we kind of thought through what's already there and how do we enhance what's existing.
That's awesome.
You might have already talked about this, Shelley, but what was the public's response in open committee as far as their input? Did you receive a lot of it? Was it how did that process kind of go?
Well, as part of our overall streetscape plan, which was almost a 2.5, 3-year process, okay, where we had a lot of public input. These were some of the things that the public discussed as ways that we can enhance downtown and beautify downtown. And so that input was part of what we're working off of. So this is just part of the overall streetscape plan that was approved by council, I want to say 2019.
So, Tori, how do we start that process for West Salem? Yeah, I mean, how do we get the ball rolling? Because we're talking about 2.5 years and the art's not up yet.
Yeah, I think the nice thing about this is downtown's doing it now, so we could learn from that group. I think the next step would be identifying locations, numbering the number of wraps that we want to do, and then engaging probably at the same time just to keep things moving, engaging the art commission so that we know, similar to what Shelley said, if you want to move quicker, you go with art that's already been approved. It's different because we're also looking at with the 2nd Street improvement, hopefully having our pedestal. That would be a more engaging process. So, we would go through a process to work with the art commission and identify artists, and they have some discretion on what. I think there's probably some feedback in what could go into that art piece, but that's a little bit more of a fixed permanent installation. You see that in downtown too. So really looking at 2 different things here, and where one might take a little longer, we will have, hopefully, we're hoping to have the pedestal mount installed with the 2nd Street piece. So the foundation will be laid for it, but then it will take some time to actually get the art. But these wraps were already, I'm not sure how much art is already approved. That's really working with what's available and identifying locations. And then, so as far as process, we'll probably look at locations and numbers, and that could probably be a discussion. What I was going to do is include at the high level for the next meeting budget items, and that would be one of them, to look at these various art pieces. And so try to get, so that would be the public discussion as far as budget authorization to engage our community for those items, and then identifying locations and themes, and then applying them. So hopefully it could be shorter, but we'll see how it goes. Obviously, again, learn from the downtown area and get what worked and what could be maybe done differently from that effort that was done. That would probably be next step, is the just looking at locations, estimating the cost, and getting that budget piece line item in there.
We have any other questions here in regards to this? Hearing none. The latest from West Salem organizations. Thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Shelley, for all of the information.
You're very much welcome. Thank you.
West Salem organizations, I guess that would be me. So the West Salem Business Association, we're in the process of renewing dues for 2024. We had Mickey Varney speak at our member meeting last week, which I was not able to attend, but I received very good feedback from members, and it was well attended. November's meeting is going to be, I believe, at Western Christian Choir, and Jeremy's lovely wife Heidi is coordinating that, so we're excited for the holidays and to bring them in. So that is what is going on. Not a lot to share this morning.
Great, thanks, Sam. I think the West Salem Neighborhood Association meets tonight at Roth's at 6:30. And Edgewater Partners is always the fourth Thursday at 9 a.m. At the Corner Art Gallery and Boutique on Edgewater. And those meetings are open to anybody in the community. And that's about it there. And I think we're scheduled for next meeting for, what is that, December 8th, Tori?
Next meeting.
Remember off the top
December
of my head.
6th.
December 6th.
Yep. So on the topics for that, looking at, again, high-level budget items. So what to anticipate going into. So with the December, it'll be more kind of text-heavy, open for discussion, what could be included for the budget going into the next year. And then as we get into January, that will get refined. So we'll have Michael, who's again with the Urban Development Department. He manages the financing piece. He'll speak to the group as far as project cost savings on the Second Street that could be applied to different projects, and those funds could be used. Again, just refining what would be discussed in the basically December and January meetings.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tori. And thanks for everybody for being here. Have a good Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks,
day.
guys.
Thanks, everyone.